Hey soldiers, if you thought that cash was going to be a safe haven from the tyranny of a central bank digital currency, you're mistaken, all right? And we're going to get into those things that will help you preserve your economic privacy, all right? And will keep you out of what they're constructing basically is a system of social credit where ultimately they want to be able to do things like we saw in Canada with the whole truckers revolt thing, where Justin Trudeau just came down and heavy-handedly said, if you contribute to this, if you participate in it, we're going to unbank you. Okay, how dare you express an opinion that differs from the state? We will show you. That is the ultimate wet dream of the tyrants out there that are unfortunately becoming more and more ubiquitous throughout governments around the world. But there are some ways that you can maintain that privacy and keep your wealth out of, at least some of it, out of that system. So let's just jump right into it. The world is headed towards central bank digital currencies, and everybody knows it. Even the people who don't want these currencies, which at the moment looks like a lot of people. Everybody realizes that this is coming. The million-dollar question is when? Well, that will vary depending on what country you live in. Now, is it going to happen tomorrow? No, you still have time. I still say that we've got 5 to 10 years to prepare for this, okay, to build a shelter for our economic privacy and wealth before these systems are firmly in place. A lot of this is still in the planning stages. Hey, and speaking of tyrannical technology, go ahead and thumbs up this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Because I don't know how YouTube works. I mean, I don't know if they're going to promote the video. They might not, based on the subject matter we're discussing. So I got to rely on you, okay? And, this is for you. So just do me that solid. I appreciate it. All right. Policymakers have deemed that we are going to go toward the CBDC system. And right about now, we're seeing a compelling opportunity for surveillance and social control that they think is irresistible. That phone call was probably YouTube telling me to stop it. Stop reporting on the evils of the CBDC because, Google's all for it. Anyway, we got a fiat currency system right now, and it is in the process of imploding. All you have to do is look at the astronomical amount of debt that we have as a country. Now look, I don't use the term astronomical lightly. There are between 100 billion and 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Let's just go ahead and give it the most liberal amount we can possibly give it. Let's say there are 500 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Well, we got $33 trillion worth of debt. Okay, so this is beyond astronomical. You got to take several galaxies and count up all the stars in all of those in order to equal what we owe. And remember, look at this U.S. debt clock. Look at how fast that amount is growing. This is absolutely disgusting. But this is one of the reasons why they want to institute a CBDC, because it will make it all the more easy to manipulate monetary policy and to tax the living daylights out of you. All right, and to see where this is going, Australia, they are pretty much going to be cashless by 2025. And don't put any faith in the Australian people to stop it. I do know we have some viewers and subscribers here from Australia. We love you. However, we see the history of things like your gun rights being just capriciously taken away. We see what happened throughout 2020 with that whole thing where your freedoms weren't respected. So there comes a point in every society, I guess, where liberty dies, and CBDCs would be a way to have that happen on many, many fronts. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Cash does not buy you freedom under a CBDC system. The error in thinking so arises from a failure to understand that cash is simply an older iteration of what digital cash and CBDCs are going to be, which are denominations in a currency backed by nothing and controlled by the very state that you are trying to protect yourself from. It gets worse because this is also the same state that has already weaponized the currency against you, either slowly via targeted inflation, and we talk about how the Fed is going to, in my estimation, inflate us or try to inflate us out of the debt will be sacrificed on the altar of inflation as taxpayers, as consumers, or overtly, as we saw, as I mentioned, during the Freedom Convoy in Canada, where they just capriciously come out and say, hey, look, we're not going to allow you to be banked. And they're doing that with cash. So they've already shown the willingness. They could definitely hit a switch and you're unbanked or seriously restricted from accessing your money under a CBDC system. All right. Paper cash economies are at risk. They're dying. It'll be easier to destroy cash than to ban it. Far easier. After all, governments and central banks have been destroying cash throughout history. And if you look at this chart, it is, the decline of the dollar. We've seen a constant march in terms of the destruction of cash for many, many decades here in the United States. How do you guard against this? What can you possibly do? Well, we talk about this all the time, guys. It bears reminding. We just did the video on Senator Robert Menendez. He feels that, some of this is the way to go in terms of preserving your capital. We talked about him not having any faith in the U.S. economy. While it's practically baked in that CBDCs will either launch as or morph into a Chinese Communist Party style social credit system, what is unknown at the moment is if late-stage globalism's financial system will actually hold together long enough for retail CBDCs to deploy. We see a lot of tweets and YouTube videos from people predicting a snap launch of a CBDC after a sudden banking holiday in the imminent future. Look, the way these will be rolled out is different for every single country, okay? So we might see something different happen in America than we've seen happen in, for example, Nigeria with the Naira and how they've just gone, balls to the wall and said, listen, citizens, you're going to do this, or we just don't know how you're going to eat, all right? They've been pretty heavy-handed in the way that they've implemented their CBDC. If your goal is to mitigate against a cashless society, one of the least effective ways of doing so would be cash. However, the ideal toolkit contains those financial vehicles, those concepts that are not readily controlled by governments. That's why they hate the cryptocurrencies, okay? Bitcoin, okay, to the extent that it can't be confiscated by a government or traced by a government. And I know what they'll say. Oh, well, if you like that kind of stuff about Bitcoin and, all the digital currencies, you must be a criminal, because only a criminal would want to hide his money from the government. Only a criminal would want to keep the government from understanding how they're spending their money, okay? Now, never mind the fact that people have been doing illicit criminal activity with cash, specifically the US dollar, for many, many decades, all right? But if you want more control and privacy over your assets, then Bitcoin's one way to go. Gold is another. And of course, real estate. Now, we're not talking about hiding assets so that you won't have to pay taxes on them. One thing that this channel emphasizes is paying what you owe to whatever tax authority has purview over you. Okay, be it your state, local, federal government, pay your taxes. Right? What we're talking about is we don't want the government understanding how much gasoline we're buying. So then it could say, hey, you bought your quota for the month. You can't have any more gasoline. And we'll be able to hit a switch on your CBD card and let the system know that you can't make that transaction anymore. We don't want the government knowing how much ammunition we buy or what kind of firearms we are into purchasing. It's none of their business. As long as we are acting within the bounds of the law, then we should be able to do what we want to do without prying eyes, right? All right, so guys, look, watch this video. It's going to clue you into more of what's happening in this ever-evolving economy and give you some tips on how to handle it and thrive through it. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.